To that, we have our next speaker, Sky Gardner, who we are so grateful to have here with us. And I'd like to invite her onto stage next. Thank you, Sky.
Welcome, everybody. I come to you today as a representative of the young people of America, with eyes looking out towards the horizon of a better future. For many young people today, the landscape of America looks bleak, stained by the decisions of those in power, leaving us not with hope, but with chaos. I speak here today because when everything else has felt hopeless, the independent movement promises a different path that I believe has the potential to uplift my whole generation. On March 11th, 2020, I was told to stay inside and not go back to school. I didn't have too many objections. I thought it was the beginning of a nice early vacation. But what was meant to be several weeks turned to 6 weeks and then to 6 months. Still, the panic compelling parents, like most of you, to keep children inside never reached me or many of my friends. As the months went by, some of my friends stopped calling me and settled into the isolation that the pandemic brought us. Others called me every day, and I'm okay to admit that that was during class and not during class. But we filled the gaps of socialization online. We were happy to replace time outdoors with our device. But what I didn't realize is that what I thought was my vacation was actually an alteration of the rest of my life. My quiet isolation was paving a subtle deterioration of a necessary part of my growing up. Socialization. The deterioration came in waves of mental health and shifts in the transitions our brains were making as it adapted to the new way of living. And although I felt normal, if not better than the years preceding the pandemic, 53% of youth feeling disconnected from the world were in a state of constant hopelessness. And 26% of those kids were thinking about suicide. And our vacation, CNN reported that 1 in 13 children went through 4 adverse or traumatizing events during the pandemic. 1 in 13 children were going through domestic trauma, relationship abuse, digital abuse, or parents losing jobs. This was not a vacation. It was a rerouting of young society. Studies archived in the National Library of Medicine show that lockdown brought unbalance in young people's EQ levels, whilst we actually grew stronger as a generation in our abilities to have general empathy and being able to see the world through different point of views, likely through an overwhelming focus on our devices. Bear with me. Our intrinsic social empathy decreased. We don't have the same intuitive understanding of the people around us as we used to. The NCBI published a test given to young people pre- and post-pandemic to see how well they could infer one another's mental states from just looking into their eyes. They discovered that when looking at someone, individuals post-pandemic could not identify each other's emotions as well as prior to being isolated. Our ability to internalize emotional cues from our peers has weakened. The nature of human understanding among young people is no longer and never will be the same. Second graders who have never been to school before were unsure what to do with other people. We've been set back as a community, and the experience of community itself has altered completely. Going to soccer practice means being part of a community, but so does this. Everything has changed. I, along with everyone else, had been locked inside of our houses with nothing but a downpour of social media. Everyone had been pushed to get in touch with the experiences of the rest of the world, but we still found ourselves unsure of what to do with this information. We had simultaneously retreated into ourselves and been exposed to more of the world than we ever had been before. When the lockdown ended and I went back to school, there was a new boundary between ourselves and my peers. There were layers added to self-expression, and we unintentionally all distanced ourselves from one another. We missed certain key years of figuring out who we were within the whole of our communities and what distinguishes us from the people around us. This dysfunction has made society uncomfortable being face-to-face. After the lockdown, more young people were found to identify themselves with fictional characters than people that we knew. The pandemic created a world where society was enclosed behind a screen. A wall was constantly provided for us, and we no longer have that, and it feels unnatural. To try and remember what life was like before the pandemic, I traced my steps back a couple years to a community that my father had belonged to. As a child, my home used to be a place of deep spiritual practice. Weekly meditations took place in our living room with people I knew and often didn't know, but that was okay because strangers were always welcome. And Sunday was when we drove up to a temple devoted to the practices of Indian American monk Paramahansa Yogananda. I never felt myself drawn to religion so much, but what I did feel was important from my mini classes was one thing: humanity's intrinsic nature of oneness. Within his teachings, there was no separation between man or woman, seedling or animal, oligarch or farmer. To be connected was not to look the same or act the same, but to see one another on a level separate from the physical. The key to connection was intentional, in-depth understanding of one another, which was exactly what COVID took from our daily practice. So how do we reconfigure ourselves back together? How do we take the habits of solitude and morph them into a skill for connection? How are we brought back to our intrinsic oneness? We must return to the common ground of humanity: love. Despite the drastic changes the pandemic brought to the way we connect, our need and desire for connection wasn't gone. We got quieter about it, sure, but had silently increased tenfold. With no screens, romantic relationships were turned back on. But we were already unsure about how to go about our relationships, and now we had to rediscover interaction as a whole. The social empathy that had been diluted only enhanced our regular confusion about how to care for and be cared for by another person. The amalgamation of separation and youth made us approach relationships more cautiously than we ever had before. We knew we needed to connect, but how to do that, we had no idea. The first year together, many of us still wore masks in class, so the beginning, all we had to find out who we were to each other was the color of our eyes and the sound of our voices. Connection was intimately limited. As we got a sense of who we were, we became more comfortable and slowly started to fill in the gaps, but I still felt like something was missing. After going through relationships myself after COVID, I began to realize how little we really understood one another. The problems in our relationships stemmed from the same thing that divides us as a greater people: confusion of something unfamiliar and a defensiveness in response to that foreign feeling. We would conflict with our partner and, without really understanding why the conflict happened, shut down as a resolution. We would respond only to what we could see. All any of us want to do is love, but we get lost in the external clutter. What we see is not reality, it is what we feel. Each of our worlds are shaped to our individual perception. To discover each other is to understand the real intricacies of it. I've been learning this more every single day. So 1 year ago, I put pen to paper and began to write. I had been slowly putting the pieces together of what I was learning, and finally they started fitting. Acknowledging that I was so young, I knew I didn't have all the answers. But I did have one thing that no adult could tell us. I knew exactly what my peers were feeling, and I knew we weren't bad partners. We were confused ones. Teenagers are not careless people. All we do is think and examine the world around us. We seek to find our place amongst the rest, so to do that, we must discover who we are. We do that through relationships, but we have those relationships, and we have to figure out who we are within them. So I turned towards the self. I wrote, know who you are. Know what you mean to you. For to be stable within yourself is to open up a window of passionate curiosity to the rest of the world, a necessary curiosity for love. Love then came next. I dove into every stage of it, the problems and their solutions. No matter what I was talking about, it all came back to the same idea. Seek to see more. Seek to listen more intentionally. Seek to find each other's stories. When your partner angers, seek to befriend the anger, not join in on the battle. When your partner cries, seek to retrace the place of which tears really flow from. When your partner rejects what you're saying with defensiveness, don't match the bearing of arms, push it down and seek the tenderness that they need. Seek to see everything that is not being said and seek to hold it gingerly in your palms and love it. This love is not just necessary for our bonds, but it is also imperative to our politics. The action of seeking is the gift of humanity. We thrive off of our stories. We dream in stories. We love in stories. We are shaped from our stories, and we know our lineage through our stories. We have the ability to seek something beyond the necessities of survival that surpasses any other species on this planet. Our might is not our power, but our thriving imagination. Imagination built cities. Imagination cultivated marriages. Imagination founded invention. Imagination drove the calloused hands that built Rome and is the gavel within the courts. We seek unique growth, and to embrace that and to nurture that skill is what fosters exceptional human connection. We have a gift that can bridge any gap, but we must use it to do so. The independent movement is built off of the principles of this: humility, curiosity, love, human connection, and sustainability. No matter why you believe we are here, we are here. And we may create exceptional love, but that starts with curiosity. The pandemic and our political landscape has set young people back, but love is the common ground, and we can find it. May empathy be the gavel in the courts, may curiosity build the next pillars of our nation, and may love carry us forward into the future. I hope to be part of that. Thank you.